Hello and welcome to the review show here on Our Game. Normally it's on a Monday, but with the bank holiday I felt we all deserved an extra day off, and joined by Phil Lanigan and Jason Byrne. Lads, how are you doing? Phil Lanigan of the Mail and of course Jason Byrne of the Irish Sun. Let's start off with you, Phil. How was your weekend?
Hi, yeah, all good. Quiet. Was at the ladies' football final on Sunday. Now it was very interesting, fairness, huge achievement for Meath.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you're living out there. How much excitement was there with that win over Kerry?
Huge, actually. Yeah, Katie New on the team, the cornerback. Replay, he lives around the corner, literally in the other state here. So like great support, kind of great interest. It was actually our senior hurlers were playing on Sunday morning. It was over in Trim before that, and most of the people were talking about the ladies' final and going into it. So there was a huge crowd. I think Meath had vast majority of the crowd there, and you saw even from the homecoming, I think there was about 4,000 or 5,000 at it. So no, great interest. The teams absolutely captured the imagination.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the scoreline there: 3-10 to Meath, Kerry 1-7, and Kerry had a great start, but Meath just took over. So back-to-back All-Irelands there. Laois in the intermediate, they beat Wexford 1-13 to 1-11, and then I think it was 1-13 apiece after extra time in the junior final between Antrim and Fermanagh. And I don't know if you saw it, lads, or Jason, if you saw it, but that goal from, I think it's Maria O'Neill was her name, the top corner finish from Antrim against Fermanagh. It was a cracker in what was a great day for ladies football.
Yeah, unbelievable, Shane. Great day at Croke Park. Great to see the big crowds back as well. And the crowds that were lined out in Navan yesterday for the Meath girls coming home at 3 o'clock in the day in the buckets of rain, they were out in their thousands. It really looked amazing. And I know that final going to replay as well. The Fermanagh manager has to rejig his wedding plans. So that's the curse of the replay. What can go wrong will go wrong. So yeah, I'd feel for him this week now, but fair play to him. Just to do it all over again.
There's plenty of penalty shootouts going on in the club at the moment. Like we're going to get to that, and one of the first games we'll talk about is St. Martin's beating St. Anne's on penalties. But how would you have felt about that game going to a penalty shootout the other day, Jason?
No, not an All-Ireland final anyway. No way. Whatever about penalties before the final. No way. Definitely not for the final.
Would you stop, Jason? Seriously, like the GA needs to get over itself. Every other major sport in the world finishes on the day. The Super Bowl doesn't go, lads, replay, cancel your wedding plans. You take your European Cup fight. Wasn't it great tension this year with Munster and the rugby? Like, it just, if you're talking about a proper fixture schedule, club and county, it can't involve replays. So just forget about the money. The All-Ireland shouldn't be any different, because if players are going to be able to plan their whole season or their lives and everything else, it can't involve replays. So just get over it. Penalties is here. It happens in pretty much every other sport. So why should the GA cling to the kind of something that's just not part of any workable fixture schedule?
It's not for a final. I completely disagree, especially in terms of a final. I think, these are amateur players. That's the difference. Don't get me wrong. Penalty shootouts have given me some of my sporting highlights of the last year, between Italy beating England and Rangers losing the Europa League final. But they're all professional athletes.
What's amateur got to do with it? The opposite argument to that is that they're amateur, so they actually have plans made. They don't have this isn't their job, so they actually can't just say, well, next week it's part of my professional life, I'm going to play again. They're amateur. They have a multitude of other commitments, and we'll get to the club, no doubt. But if you want to have a fixture schedule, and I can understand the attraction from the GA that the money, the huge revenue, 3 or 4 million, whatever you get from replay, filters back down in different parts. But what about the semi-finalists then? If you have a principle or you don't have a principle for, look at Armagh this year, even Porrick Joyce said, crazy that a team is knocked out at such an important stage. So it only applies to the finalists. Like, that's not a fair principle for a championship. You can't treat two teams differently just for one stage of the competition. I don't think.
Well, one thing I'd add that sometimes I'm a bit torn on it. I kind of like the penalty shootouts in general. Like the Munster minor hurling final between Tipperary and Clare went to a penalty shootout. And for me, and even Galway and Armagh, it added to the drama that there wasn't the release valve of saying, we'll have a replay and we'll all go again. Like even Galway Kilkenny 2012. So remember, Clare, to be fair, Clare and Cork had a brilliant replay as well in 2013. But in some ways, just continuing the drama, like that Munster minor final, I think is going to be more memorable because we had a winner on the day. But look, I do kind of take Jason's point at the same time.
Yeah, no, sorry, Shane, but as well as that, there's such nonsense about the young players can't, oh my God, how could you put them through a penalty shootout? Like, yeah, sweet Lord, like it happens in every other sport, like soccer. Jeez, I played soccer for the school myself, missed a penalty in a Leinster final, and life goes on.
No surprise there.
What a take. We won that, and we beat Kieran's in a Leinster final. They had a brilliant team. But the idea, it happens like the player, Shane Walsh, was getting fiercely criticised for actually the mistake he made towards the very end of the Armagh game. So whether you miss the penalty or you make a mistake at the end, that's part of sport. So
you've segued
It's part of a different sport, though.
Well, there you go now. There you go. But anyway, you've segued lovely, Phil, onto Shane Walsh and this notion of the transfer to Kilmacud Crokes. So, he does have that 5-hour, 360-kilometre return trip home to Kilkerran, Clonbyrne. So that's obviously very, very difficult to sustain. He's 30 years of age. He's obviously up and down to Galway for county training. And I think goes up and down with John Dively. That's obviously going to be tough enough on the body. To do that with the club as well, he's got the student placement in Dublin where he's studying. Where do you fall on this side of it? Because going to Kilmacud Crokes, who got to an All-Ireland final, they were seconds away from winning the All-Ireland club, despite not having Paul Mannion, arguably one of the best forwards in the country. So now going to a new season, we're looking at Kilmacud, who almost won the club, adding in Paul Mannion and Shane Walsh into a team. And it feels like there's something wrong. I've transferred club, so I've nothing against transferring club. But it feels like there's something wrong here, Phil.
There is. I read Carol Kane had a super piece in the Irish News this morning talking through a lot of the issues, and I agree with him 100%. Like, this isn't Shane Walsh's fault. You can't blame Kilmacud for looking for a player their main rivals are going to try and hoover up. But there are very fundamental questions about, can you transfer, surely living and working maybe qualifies you. So like this idea, again, as Carol picked up, it's a college thing, third level, sure. If you apply a change of transfer for third level, say, sure, yeah, if you take some of the stars of Meath Ladies Fall, like Vicky Walls studying in DC, do you suddenly just say, okay, yeah, look, I'm studying in Dublin, we'll give you a club here? Like, there has to be the Dublin situation. The club, as we'll get to, is probably, it's the last kind of bastion of the GA's amateurism and parish and all that, when we've seen with intercounty, finance and all demographics are fed into the kind of modern GA. So if you mess with that, where the club championship is already kind of being tilted numbers wise and geographically towards the super clubs, through no fault of their own, because they're doing such brilliant work. The likes of Kilmacud and Ballyboden are so strong because they're doing such brilliant work. There has to be a level of control, surely, where the pick of the best players from rural clubs, if they graduate towards the pick of the big, huge city clubs who already have vast resources, well, clearly that's going to impact on the stakes for the All-Ireland Club Championship and kind of make a pitch that is, many would argue, is being tilted against rural Ireland, even more unfair.
Yeah, Jason, where do you fall on this? I mean, from a Kilmacud Crokes point of view, if they see that Shane Walsh is, looking to move to Dublin, they'd be crazy not to make a bid for him themselves. Because we've seen that before, players moving up to Dublin and there'll be multiple clubs onto the one player. You don't want to be disadvantaged yourself. But at the same time, they're a club with 4,800 members. It does feel like there's something a little bit awry here.
Yeah, it does, Shane. And like it's gas. The week ago we were playing Leitrim, getting ready to play Leitrim in the Connacht semi-final. I was passing through the Apple Green in the N4 and I met Shane in the forecourt, and he says, where are you coming from? And he goes, I'm going back to college up in Dublin. we had a quick chat, and away I went in to pay for my diesel, and little did I know the storm that was about to erupt following that. But I was writing about this morning myself, just from Kilcairn Clonbairn's point of view. Like when I used to work for Galway FM, I've been at their pitch. Like you can all picture it. Tiny village, church, school, pub, GA club. And I think, I know the club are kicking up a bit of a fuss and maybe the optics don't look great, but I think from their point of view, they're thinking of the small number of kids that they do have out training at the minute. They want to be the next Shane Walsh. They want to be the fella that kicked 9 points in an All-Ireland final and got Galway so close to winning a Sam Maguire. They want to be that player who just plays football for the sheer fun of it and takes the mickey out of defenders like the way he does. Like he's a remarkable player. And I think from the club's standpoint, just to lose him as being that icon around the club, I think that's what's breaking their hearts. And then in terms of the regulation, like it just seems to be a free-for-all in the cities. Like Shane, as you said, you've been this soldier. You went to Coola, and there's been plenty of other players. Like you look at Parnell's in Dublin there, maybe 15 years ago, it was like half of an all-star lineup. You had Colin Begley, Conor Mortimer, you name it. So like, and the fact that he's only gone up for college, maybe Shane does plan on settling there for a while. I'm not sure. It's just there just needs to be something to kind of ring fence this off a bit better, because we could be setting a very dangerous precedent here. Maybe it's just like it's definitely not just a once off. Like you see, there are after players that go to America every summer, and they're fully entitled to it. But you'd have to think that there's a lot of maybe a few dodgy dealings going on under the table as well. I'm not saying that's going on in this case whatsoever, but I'm sure over the years there's been a few blind eyes turned when club transfers have been happening and various things have been going on with players going here, there, and everywhere else. So it's just that there seems to be such a grey area with it at the moment, and it's all just really blown up now. That the fact that it's Shane Walsh, like if it was some bog standard club player who was moving up to Dublin to go to college, there'd be nothing else said about it. But the fact that it's him just really puts it under the microscope now, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like his club seem to be standing their ground on this, so
there needs to be regulation, though. Change, don't they?
Yeah.
Again, like I played with Luke and Saracens, and we had Declan Carr actually came in he finished up in America and came and rejoined Lucan, and we won the intermediate hurling championship with him playing midfield. He scored a goal in the final. He was brilliant guy around. But like Declan and the Carrs had long-standing roots with Lucan family, grown up there. So like there was an obvious reason for him to kind of fit in, and it felt absolutely natural. And again, would have been held in huge regard there. So like the idea that you can just maybe cherry pick a club like on what basis, and it's even more. There's a long history of obviously players coming from transferring from country clubs, but the internal mechanics of Dublin are like there's a more modern tradition of players transferring within Dublin, which is hugely contentious. And again, are there real controls over that? And that's where you get into various clubs have. Players have transferred from intermediate, you say give them a chance at senior to prove their worth. But when you're leaving your own club within a city where there's no commute, and I think if I remember right, even Paul Curran would have been one of the first, remember, brilliant with Davis's. Did he briefly go to Kilmacud back in the day? So there was kind of a level of controversy around that. And I don't think that's ever been resolved in Dublin properly about what guides you between even transferring internally within a city, which, as you say, Jay, rarely happens kind of within the rural scene.
Yeah, I mean, even Liam Cahill was, obviously played with his club his whole life, and then he went to Thurles Sarsfields and won a couple of county titles. I know there was another few players who internally transferred to Thurles over the years. You see it from outside the county, like I'm from Borris-Lee. The two Kennys transferred down, but of course their father's from Borris-Lee. So sometimes it feels like it's a natural fit, like in that situation. Other times it doesn't feel so much. Like Flash says here, spot on from Jason, it's only a huge story because of it being Shane Walsh. Did everyone in Tip turn on the Saint after going to Coola? They didn't. I'd actually transferred out to New York, a full transfer the year before, because I hadn't heard in a couple of years. So I was actually transferred from the New York Tipperary club to Coola. So nobody in Borris-Lee.
You went to secret. Secret.
No, nobody would have objected anyway. They were happy to see me go in Burris, I'm sure. But no, that wouldn't have happened. But like, Phil, what would you like to see done? And I kind of agree, this idea of transferring to a club that are 10 minutes up the road. We saw Knockavilla and Cashel, 4 or 5 players transferring there in the last year or so. It can be a little bit unseemly. But to go, sometimes there are justified reasons why you transfer up the road. But in the main, sometimes it just feels a little bit wrong. This whole, what can be done about transferring in general so it doesn't just feel willy-nilly?
Again, it's the regulation. Like, it's very hard if a player wants to play senior hurl and say take Liam Rush now. Sure, Liam's with Nafeen, isn't it again?
Well, to be fair, Pats weren't even lining out a team in championship. They were given walkovers.
Exactly. So they're very valid reasons. Say a club kind of falls down the ranks and a player, you get someone like Liam, hugely talented, like county player who a manager will want. Well, you need to be playing at the highest level even to be part of a county squad, and that's happened multitude of times in Dublin for very valid reasons. Where the change of circumstance, maybe change of address, and then you say like a club goes down the ranks, and you're sitting there kind of going with county pretensions. How do you? So like there's a lot of very real, credible reasons why, but it's just it does need the regulation side of it. To obviously it's to keep the thing fair. Like that's the All-Ireland Club Championships. If they become clearly a model where people feel there is a sense of unfairness about what's happening, well then you do get at the heart of the integrity of the competition.
Yeah, like Jason, even in terms of like if you're transferring from one county to another, and if you're a senior player or if you're a county player, should there be a regulation of what type of team you're allowed to transfer to? Really, should an inter-county player be allowed to transfer to a senior team, especially a county champion team, or should they have to come in at a lower level? Or, is that even unfair on the player? It's very hard to know because it's always waved around, this is unfair on the club, this is unfair on the player. It's very hard to know what the right thing to do is.
Yeah, like especially, because we still are in an amateur sport here, like society's changing fast all the time, and the GA have to keep up with this. Do you have to create some sort of NFL draft situation? I don't know, and that'll bring all sorts of its own complications as well. And even within counties there, do you remember when Donny Vaughan went from Ballinrobe to Castlebar Mitchells? That left a lot of a huge sour taste around Ballinrobe and South Mayo for a long time after that, just because of the distance. But in terms of going from one county to another, it's happening. You go on the GA transfer section of the website, and there's thousands and thousands of players listed there from January right through till last week. It hadn't updated as of last night, obviously, because of the bank holiday, but it'd be interesting to see now if Shane's name's there in the next day or two. But I don't know. It's such a difficult one. It's just because, as you said, it's Crooks and the amount of playing numbers they have and the pick they have and everything else, and they were so close. They probably should have won the Club of Ireland this year as well. And
but surely residency is key, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
where you're living. Like if you're living on the south side of the city playing for a north side club, if there's plenty, Kilmacud have plenty of players, and every club in Dublin has plenty of players who are living there, working there, embedded in the community, and a very real part of that club. So if you're living in Stillorgan, why would you have to end up? Why would you be denied senior football? Like this idea that what you have to play, like Shane Walsh has to play intermediate, is that fair? But clearly, if it's an issue in Dublin, then do you get into the kind of draft system where, look, if there's 3 clubs on your doorstep and the top 4 are massive numbers, do you automatically, do the other clubs get first choice? Say, it's very complicated, but clearly residency should be at the key, at the heart.
But what complicates the residency is let's say you might move up to Dublin, you can afford a house in one area, but you've got links to a club in another area. I'm not going to be buying a house in Dalkey anytime soon, but I've been with Coola for a long time because I had links to them beforehand, albeit friendships, But okay, that one's going to rumble on and keep your comments coming in. Let us know what you think. In the Wexford Hurling Championship over the weekend, highly, highly dramatic. 11 months on from St. Martin's getting knocked out 2-1 on penalties in the preliminary quarter-final. Thereafter winning a quarter-final against St. Anne's. Now, this game had absolutely everything. I don't know if you saw any of the highlights, but the weather was horrific. And there was only 3 out of 10 penalties scored, and obviously St. Martin's won. Eventually, the best penalty was struck by Joe O'Connor, who's a great left-handed striker, and Willie Devereux hit the winner. But St. Anne's, there's still talk of an appeal because they scored what looked like a very legitimate goal in the second half, where Aidan Rochford went through, smacked the ball, the umpires thought it hit the post, but when you look at the replays, it actually looked like it hit the bag of hurleys. The goalkeeper's bag of hurleys came back out of that, and that could have cost St Anne's their place in the semi-final. That's not exactly an ideal. Like, I mean, it's going to get to a stage now where goalies can't even leave their hurleys in the goal, Phil.
Yeah, I saw the clip, the highlights. It was incredible. I think the reaction of players often tells a tale, and I think the Nathan Rochard knew instinctively that something was wrong and went in. So I think, the idea that it hit the upright, it looked wrong. It really looked like it hit the bag of hurleys, which is, talked about an incredible bad look. So, and I know we probably talked about split season, but and our typical Irish summer, we're playing in monsoon conditions at times. Now, so the weather was great in other parts of the country, but again, it's a very modern finish to the game, penalties. So it'd be interesting just to see whether that appeal stands up. I guess you're trying to interfere with the referee's final scoreline, which is probably unlikely.
Yeah, that tends to happen more often mid-game, as we saw between Galway and Derry, Jason.
Yeah, exactly. But where the umpires, there would have been 2 umpires down there as well. Obviously, what's the story there?
So we saw with Owen Kelly and Mullinahone. He had a penalty wide there last week, and it looks like it was wide and hit the flag, and it was given anyway. Yeah,
I don't know. These things just they're ridiculous when they do happen. They shouldn't be happening at all.
Have you ever tried to be a hurling umpire though, Jason? I did a few times, and generally you're trying to get out of the way if somebody's shooting.
I was playing a match.
Sadly, where I grew up, Prince William got more hurling coaching. Prince William was more hurling coaching than me. So,
Joe, a couple of years ago, we had one of the lads in the club. He was doing umpire in a championship match, and the lad is half blind, and I was playing full back, and the ball went up. I wasn't sure if it went wide or not, and he was just standing there panicking, and he was getting screamed at by the opposition team, and I said, keep your hand down, and eventually he just put the flag up, and I was just screaming at him over the course of the game. Then every time a shot went in, it's wide. So anyway, that stuff happens too. Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
No, going to any club match, the whole idea is sit in the car nearly till 5 minutes in case you get roped in as umpire. Yeah. It's the worst job in the world. And hurling is next to impossible. Now, in fairness, Jason has a fair point. Now, if a ball hits a bag of hurleys, that really should be picked up. But I nearly always have a little bit of excuse for hurling umpires because, I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Do you know, in the St. Martin St. Anne's game, Rory O'Connor came on. I think he came on in extra time, barely. Yeah, it started the 4th quarter. His team were up 16 points to 111, and he went for a solo run, and he had that knee injury against Clare, of course, in the All-Ireland quarter-final. Probably cost him that day, but he had to go off again here. And you can understand if you're the management of St. Martin's, Jason, throwing him out there. But, it's a tough one, too, for a player. We saw, Ballier went on and won the county championship without Tony Kelly last year. He went and got his operation, I think, after maybe the semi-final or the quarter-final. It's a tough one for Rory O'Connor because, of course, he wants to help his club. But at the same time, how much is that going to set him back? Hopefully, it's only a minor recurrence.
Yeah, the clubs have their window now and they've been waiting. They've known this has been coming up and, they would have absolutely wanted the Rory in the field. And, it's real catch-22. Some managers would have said, no, I'll leave him off. This could do more damage in the long run. And, I'm sure, as you said, Rory could have been barking at them himself to play. I'm sure he was itching to get out there, especially, after he would have been waiting to get back in with the club as well. So, it's we've seen that happen a lot of times over the years with players as well, especially when a big name like that comes back in a club level, sometimes you just throw them on with one leg, but yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, Naveena won the other semi-final against Shelmaliers. So Naveena, at one stage, they had a goal scored. I'm pretty sure it was centre forward. I just can't remember his name off the top of my head. But the referee had the whistle blown. And then he buried it into the back of the net. And he definitely would have buried it even if the whistle hadn't to go. And then Conor MacDonald had the penalty saved. So that'd be highly frustrating. So next weekend, St. Martin's are going to be against Naveena and Rapparees are against Glyn Barntown or Fern St. Aidan's. I'm not actually sure which that's going to be yet. But what do you think of those counties like Carlow now, for example, and Wexford, Phil, where they're playing them week on week, the one championship, rather than kind of, let's say, for example, Tipperary and Dublin, where they alternate from football to hurling every second week?
Look, it wouldn't be my preference, even as a player. I think you want to be, I don't know, like you want to be playing for as long, as you can. You don't want your championship season done and dusted so quickly. Look, I think in Wexford, though, they did talk to the players, and any of them involved last year seem to very much support that as a hurler in particular, say where it's skills work, that you get that focus for a set period of time, not too much distractions, because in dual counties it is so tricky. So it's very hard to tell dual counties what's the best way. So I think they'll figure it out. I think do this for the next, we're only really getting the first feel of this the last couple of seasons, so I think let it play out for a few years and then have a proper serious discussion with all the parties and say what suits. I know just if you're a hurler only and you're done and dusted in a short space of time, that's far from ideal either.
Yeah, that can be frustrating. Just to move on to the Galway Senior Hurling Championship, and St. Thomas's and Sarsfield, apparently a brilliant game, 225 to 319. But I actually just want to jump on a little bit because, as you said, Jason used to work with Galway Bay FM, and I'll just go through some of the other results. Turlockmore beat Castlegar 218 to 110. Mike Cullen beating Athenry, though. How big of a win is that for Mike Cullen, especially against Athenry, which would be seen as a real hotbed of hurling? And can you just tell us about Mike Cullen and how far they've come, really, Jason? I know you would maybe not the ins and outs, but just this wouldn't have been seen 10 years ago, for example.
No way, Shane. And Mike Cullen is, it's the kind of start of Connemara, not far from Galway City, be largely seen as football country, and Athenry just powerhouses of hurling in Galway for so many years. And then when that great Portumna team came along, they drifted back a bit, and that's an absolutely monumental result. But the Galway Hurling Championship always brings up something like this nearly every year. It's one of the best club championships you will ever watch. I actually really miss covering it. The standard is absolutely exceptional. Some of the games, that's just par for the course, that result, and the St. Thomas's game there as well. Those games are every week, and it's the same in intermediate as well, because there's so many teams in the intermediate championship that'll feel like they should be in senior, and that's an absolutely huge result for Mike Cullen. And Mike Cullen have become one of the big benefactors of the way Galway City has spread out that direction. And, they've reaped that benefit with the football as well. And, that's just a massive result. And it's hard to put your finger on why Athenry maybe haven't been challenging in so many years either, because, Athenry has grown substantially as a town as well. And, it's always been hurling country out there as well. So, but that's part of the course in that Galway Club Championship. It's just if anyone's out that way in the next few weeks, get to Kenny Park, get to Duggan Park in Ballinasloe, get to Loughrea to get in some of those games, or try and get them streamed or something, because I'm telling you, the standard is always just absolutely through the roof. And you see Joe Canning back lighting it up for Portumna now as well. He's through all his injuries, it's just, you still have players like him, still going strong. And it's a class championship. I absolutely love it. And I'm not surprised that a result like that has come to pass again.
Yeah, Phil, you were doing a piece in the Mail about how it's brilliant to have the club back, weren't you?
Yeah, you'd swear all these players disappeared after the inter-county. I just find some of the debate kind of crazy, to be honest. There's valid reasons. There seems to be a collective amnesia as to how we've got to this point. Clearly everybody loved to have All-Ireland finals in August. Everybody loved All-Ireland finals, say September, for the thing to run the whole year round. But the rest of the GA doesn't function if that happens. And that's why it's been changed. So this collective amnesia about why we've come to this point is because club players were getting screwed for the last, for decades. We had a Club Players Association that had to tell the GA to wake up, and that there was a level of unrest at club level that was just reaching a crisis level. So we've got to this point because the GA actually said, yes, there needs to be a better balance. The GPA, the GA, everybody through the ESRI reports have said the balance is wrong. Now when we give the balance back towards the clubs, everybody says, oh, I want to watch TV, I want to watch Joe Canning, David Clifford, whoever on TV. Sweet mother, let the thing play out first. So let's have the full year. And no more than anybody else, again, might be tweaks. And, I'd like the season is very compressed. And if it's possible to give an extra week or two, I'd love to see that. And the inter-county, maybe give an extra week or two for All Irelands. But the club players need their show. And again, so many counties are embracing it, and it's been brilliant. I was at the third round of the Meath Hurling Championship, Senior Hurling Championship on Sunday morning, played in perfect conditions in Trim. The football championship just starting up now. The scaremongering and all the self-serving thing about, counties wouldn't embrace it, won't start everything till September. A lot of it just isn't true. So, and the idea that everything has to be on TV, otherwise the GA won't function. Like, I wrote this morning that the GA started with the clubs being the flag bearers of the All-Ireland series. The GA started with its clubs. So this idea that we have to have an inter-county game on every Sunday or wall-to-wall coverage and the GA won't function is a nonsense, because the club is the heartbeat of the association and participation is the key for any sport. And the pro sports that are absolutely being destroyed at participation levels or underneath their club scene, the GA can't afford to go that route.
Do you know, Jason, this on Sunday there, I was down home in Borrisley, and Tipperary have had a terrible year at hurling. Nobody would say otherwise. Didn't get through to a league semi-final and lost every game in the Munster Championship. And I was sitting there looking out the front window, and it was just constant young lad, young girl going up and down with hurleys under their arms or poking the ball. To me, it's not all dependent on the county team going well. That a lot of young players, their heroes are at home.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. No more than myself here in Killybegs. I'm up here at the minute. I was out at home over the weekend, and everyone was still talking about a point that Conor Cunningham scored off the ground to keep our club in Division 1 last weekend. It actually went viral online, because kind of a similar situation. County team didn't go too well, lost the manager or whatnot. All that's kind of up in the air, but it's moments like that people have been talking about, and they can't wait for the club championships to start here now in just under 2 weeks. And it's so belittling to hear people pontificate after the intercounty finishes saying, "Oh yeah, that's it. Sure, it's all over." It's the year's only starting for the majority. It's only actually starting. So it's hard to kind of stomach that. And the funny thing is, you show me the player who has been given out of it the split season. Show me the player who doesn't like the way it's mapped out. I haven't heard one of them speak out against it anyway so far. As Phil said as well, this thing has yet to play out. This is the club thing now. We're in the middle of that. Let that play out. Make your call in December, January, assess it then. But I don't think there's anything really to be assessed, because it seems to be working well. The club players are getting their chance now. They can book their holidays, they can go to their weddings, they can be active in their lives, which they really couldn't do before. They were just being pulled from pillar to post. Everything was left up in the air, and it was an absolute joke. And now it's all mapped out. It's there in black and white. You know what weekends you need to be ready. You know what weekends you have free. Sure, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and there's RTE are going to be starting games in September. TG Cahir are going to be hammering out the usual amount of games as well. It's actually going to be a feast of GA, Phil.
There is, yeah, but the idea that every match has to be on television, we're all, sponsored and everything are enthralled to TV because it gives them the clicks, it gives them their money. But the association doesn't have to work that way either. A proper game structure that has the hundreds of thousands of members playing, that's what keeps people in the game. And then they fall in love with the county stars and as they go as well. But this idea that, I was talking even the ladies final at the weekend, and few people saying to me, "Oh, well, look, going up against the Euros, the ladies women's soccer," and I sit there kind of going, what are they meant to do? The GA are strong enough to plan their own schedule. If there's various things that they really need to move a fixture around, fine. But otherwise, plan their own schedule. They're strong enough, and they have the support enough. The fans will go to the games, and the whole thing is go to the games. Don't it's all built around the TV viewer. All the complaining seems to be done from people who just want to sit at home and flick between the golf and then the GA and then the soccer. There's actually supporters who want to go see the games.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to talk a little bit more about Thomas's and Sarsfield's. Shane Cooney, I think apparently he was out with a cruciate last year. There's talk of him maybe going travelling, remains to be seen there. David Sherry, I think, is out with a cruciate also. But Conor Cooney, James Regan and Aina Burke scored 115 from play between them, which is some going. Davy Burke, apparently excellent. Kevin Cooney for Sarsfield's hit 2 goals. But a couple of penalties were missed. Both Kevin Cooney and his brother John Cooney, they missed one each, both saved by Gerald Kelly. And Alex Kinnair scored 1-3 for Sarsfield's. I'm going to ask you a couple of things, Jason. Number one, do you think anyone in Galway can stop Thomas's? That's obviously a good showing from Sarsfield's there. And number two, I'd say, when you look back at it, geez, St. Thomas's, they were so close to winning an All-Ireland semi-final. Get to a final, who knows, against Ballygunner. And no Galway team has won the All-Ireland since Portumna, I think, was it 2013 or 14? But can their stranglehold be broken in Galway?
I think it can, but like they're definitely still the team to beat. Like you'd have a few clubs there, like Turlough and that as well, who would feel that they're very, very close. But they're just they just know the drill by now. They're just so well coached. They just they never really panic. And I know they've kind of used different things about people maybe writing them off on that before in the past, and they seem to have a really good kind of bond in the dressing room and really kind of they produced a bit of a siege mentality last year, I thought, in that run as well. And it was to come back from a defeat like that is going to seriously test their mental strength, because that must have just been so hard to take after, having your eye on that prize for so long. They were all Ireland champions in 2013. There's, as you mentioned there, the likes of Davy Burke, James Regan, all still around. Conor Cooney was only a nipper in that team. I remember, he was just a wee stringy forward, there was, and he's an absolute beast now. And they're a serious side. But again, with that championship, anything can happen. And there's a lot of seriously good, strong clubs there as well. I think Turlough should have a big say in that championship again. And, you always have the likes of Liam Mellows who are always thereabouts too.
They have Ryan O'Dwyer now. He transferred to them this season.
Yeah, that's right. I actually saw that in the transfer section of the GA website when I was flicking through it there. It's always interesting to see who's going where. So yeah, huge addition for them again. Thomas is obviously the team to beat, but there's no reason why they wouldn't be tripped up, and there's no reason why they should be complacent and thinking they should coast through that championship again. Absolutely no way.
Yeah, and just to pad out a bit more on Mike Cullen, Cian Folan and Niall Mannion scored the goals for them. They hit the last 5 points to beat Athenry, and Athenry were down to 14 men after Ronan Hardiman had been sent off. Loughrea beat Tommy Larkins by a point with Jamie Ryan's late free. Jason Flynn scored 113 for Larkins. And Portumna beat Ahascra Fahina 9 in a row laid on for Portumna. And apparently Canning scored a one-handed point from 45 yards out, which is fair going. The Waterford Championship then, Mount Sion beat Abbeyside 226 to 15 points, and it almost seems unfair when Austin Gleeson is out on the field. He scored 1-5 of that from play. That 17 scored in the first half. His brother Jamie scored a top corner goal. But to be fair to Abbeyside, they were without Conor Prunty and Neil Montgomery due to injury. But Dan Shanahan, playing in his 30th season at the age of 45 for Lismore. Now, they lost to Rowan Moore 220 to 19 points, a couple of late goals there being the difference. But that's some going for Dan the man. To think that he's playing all the way back in, was it 1993 or 2 he made his club debut, Phil?
He's unbelievable. Great character, and I guess the love for the game has sustained him, hasn't it?
Scored a point as well and set up. Yeah. I think he set up some scores.
Phenomenal, and sure, even when he was in with Derek McGrath, spent more time nearly running onto the pitch at times. You could see he wanted to be out there if he could. The Waterford Championship would be interesting, given we all thought that the breakthrough last year, winning the club title, Ballygunner, might actually feed into the inter-county, and it did look like it was going that way, obviously, until the wheels fell off in Munster. So it's just, will one team's dominance help the county now, or I guess you get a sense from the other clubs, will they raise the standards and try and break that run? Is it now 44 games, Shane?
44 games. Last championship defeat was De La Salle, the 23rd of June 2015. The likes of Patrick Fitzgerald, he made his debut coming on and scoring 2 points against Passage the other day. Sure, what would he have been? He would have been 11 or something, and now here he is making his debut, Jason, and his team hasn't been beaten since he was a child.
It's crazy stuff. It will come to an end sometime, but that's just a phenomenal record. It really is. There's some club. Just when you go through their team, it's just frightening. They're a great club, and they all seem like great lads as well. I've always enjoyed kind of covering their games. There's always a bit of colour to them as well, especially when they come out into the provincial and All Ireland series as well. So, that's just phenomenal. It must be fairly disheartening if you're in the chasing back, and especially if you've been a player that's maybe soldiering on for most of that. I don't know, it's serious.
Yeah, and you can imagine like Pádraig Mahoney only came back from injury midway through last season. Well, I suppose during the club championship last year, he's probably had a full season now, been injury free. He scored 1-9, 1-5 from play, the same as Ozzy in his game. Desi Hutchinson scored 3 points. Patrick Fitzgerald, who'd be related to the Mahoneys, he's supposed to be another coming player. Phil, to me, they have to be All-Ireland favourites. I know it's a long, long way out, but they have to be.
Favourites, yeah, already, yeah.
Well, only because like finally they've thrown off the shackles of they hadn't won one. Now they've won one. I'd say they're free to kind of kick on again.
Yeah, well, look, they deserved it last year. I guess Munster could be so hard to cutthroat to get out as well. But yeah, you think they have such a solid base, and like I say, all the years of experience now have got over the line. And I think the parallels are there between Waterford and Limerick hurling. And the Piercing were the ones to be the first senior team from the county since '73 to lift an All Ireland, and then lo and behold, the county team kind of came along and made the step up. And you get the sense with Ballygunner and Waterford that they're very similar parallels there, that if they can just kick on and do the same.
Yeah, so Billy Nolan, actually, just to jump back to the Rowan Moore win over Lismore, where Dean Reedy and Emmett O'Toole scored late goals for the win there. Billy Nolan played, who's the Waterford goalkeeper. Well, he was backup goalkeeper last year, but he has played in senior championship. He played at centre back for Rowan Moore and scored 3 points. There can't be too many goalkeepers out there. Jason, anyone coming to mind in terms of hurling or football, goalkeepers who go out and play outfield positions for their club and excel?
Owen Murphy.
Glenmore, yeah.
Straight off the bat. But yeah, that's some clipping. Like it's a lot. Like you hear a lot of these maybe unheard stories with goalkeepers who maybe didn't want to be goalkeepers, and they just ended up in there, and then they kind of they've always played outfield with their club. I know Shane Ryan, the Kerry football keeper, was the same, and I've seen Stephen Cluxton play club matches in Dublin too, and just boss it from number 6, like, and just distribution of the ball exceptional, and able to burn a man, and like Owen Murphy from Kilkenny anyway would be the standout one. But yeah, that's some going. That's serious stuff. And I know my old buddy David Hardy used to play a bit outfield as well whenever he could, like especially when he used to kick a bit of ball for the crack as well in the winter. So yeah.
Brian Hogan of Lara would be another one that would stand out to me. Anyone coming to mind, Phil?
I know it's probably more common with football as well, but like I remember, what sure wasn't Murphy nearly top scorer during the Fitzgibbon Cup when he was down in Waterford. So like he's had it there a long time. And to be honest, the way the game is going now, the keeper, it's long moved on from a long puck contest that they're probably the most instrumental player on any team in football and hurling. So like the skill set now, in terms of setting up attacks and such, that I would have thought it's going to become more common.
Yeah, and Nicky Quaid.
The hurling keepers don't go silly with what some of the football keepers were at this year and coming out clicking.
I think it will happen. I think it will happen. Yeah, I think it's going to
be absolutely criminal.
Because I was asking Stephen O'Keefe, who you could imagine playing outfield, actually. I asked him earlier in the year, like, what is it now a goalkeeper's creeping out? And he's like, because most inside forward lines play with 2 in there, you actually have huge space either side of the 2-man inside forward line to move into. So maybe it'll move more that way. Like Nicky Quaid plays centre back for Effin there, but he made his debut for Limerick back during the Justin McCarthy and the strike era and all that. Didn't he play outfield when he made his debut?
Was he around midfield or middle third anyway? Yeah. So
yeah, I was trying to remember that, but we'll just blast through a few more results anyway. Dungarvan beat 4 Mile Water 118 to 13 points. The Curran brothers scored 113 between them. The Piercing beat Doon 220 to 118. They hit the last 7 scores there. Doon had been up by 7. Doon are just obviously trying to finally end their long famine. They've never won a Limerick senior title, but this must have been a crushing win. 116 to 12 ahead, but just scored twice more. David Dempsey and Conor Boylan with the goals for the Piercing. And Kilmallock fairly battered Patrick as well. Like Keane Lynch is obviously out at the moment. But they started out very well with goals from Thomas O'Brien and Jordan Higgins, went up by 6. But then Kilmallock hit 10 of the next 11 points. And then under 20 stars, Shane O'Brien and Conor Hanley-Clark, they scored a couple of goals. So obviously that's the county champions blasting on. A hand drew with a dare 115 apiece. They were level 9 times, and Tom Morrissey hit 1-9 out of the 115 on Declan Hannon. It's a different job, from playing with the county, isn't it? Where you have to tightly man or if you don't tightly mark your man at club level against someone like Tom Morrissey, it's going to be a tougher day for Hannon, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, I was writing before about like Limerick are so clever in how they set up, so sophisticated tactically. Like I think Hannon is the closest thing I've seen to. I know in soccer they talk about a false nine and players who drops off the attacking position and links the play. Like to me, he's the closest thing to a false six, in that he doesn't spend his time marking the opposition centre forward much of the time, particularly if he drops deep. He just plays that brilliant link roll dropping off, and then you get the likes of Will O'Donoghue and Tara O'Donovan to do a lot of the cover and protect the central channel. And I remember there was an exchange in the All-Ireland final early on when Walsh got a couple of early scores and he was roaring at the lads. So you can only do that if your team are so well orchestrated and set up to have other lads who know their exact roles. So yeah, the joy of it, the club, you see lads playing different positions, different roles, and maybe with a different way of playing than they would operate at county level.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Kilkenny group stages, they were thrown in over the weekend as well. In Group A, Clara, they beat Ballyhale Shamrocks 222 to 124. But as far as I know, TJ Reid and Richie Reid were both on holidays. Don't think Joey Holden was there. Don't think Colin Fennelly was there either. So to actually still score 124 and only lose by a point, that shows that Shamrocks aren't going to be far away again this year. Erin's Own, they were beaten heavily enough by Tullerone, 216 to 13 points. And Lisdowney, who've no real stars on the team, but very even sort of team since coming up. They beat Mulnavat 215 to 12 points, and that's a fair win over Mulnavat. In Group B, James Stephens, they lost to Glenmore 126 to 20 points. Obviously, we're talking about Glenmore there with Owen Murphy, and I don't really think James Stephens were down anybody. So that's a 9-point loss to Glenmore is a fair old victory for Glenmore. Bennett's Bridge beat Dixborough 220 to 17 points, and Bennett's Bridge were without Jason Clear, and Rob Lennon went off early on, so that's a good win there. And O'Loughlin Gales beat Greg Ballycallan 419 to 313, which is a good victory there. Just to jump on to the Cork Championship, Blackrock beat Sarsfields 115 to 17 points. I don't know what you hear about this, Jason, but the late show from Alan Connolly, apparently brilliant. Sarsfields did miss the penalty, but they were still 17 points to 13 up with normal time over. Then Connolly got a ball late on in stoppage time, put it to the net. Then he linked with Michael O'Halloran and they drew level. And then Connolly was fouled when he was going in on goal and knocked over the free for the winner. I mean, what a late performance there. You hear that of county players with heroics late in games, but that's fair going.
I just lost you there for a second, Shane, and the game froze. Sorry. Can you go again?
I was just going on about the heroics of Alan Connolly of Blackrock at the weekend there. He scored a goal and a point in injury time and set up another point as Blackrock robbed Sarsfields. But sometimes you do see these county players just step up and be able to do abnormal things at the club stage because, they're just at that different level. Yeah,
and then, it's, fair play to Alan for coming up with the goods there. Just coming in and being the absolute hero. We'll see a lot of those stories for the rest of the summer too and into when things heat up. But, the Cork Championship's always an interesting one. It's, it'll be interesting to see how many players are going to put their hands up to get on the county team for next year as well, especially with new management. And again, there's so many. There must be so many players out there in that club and in those club campaigns now that'll be really wanting to pitch themselves to get onto the big stage. But I know Alan stole the show there, but there's just it's such a vast championship and there's so many facets to it and there's so many teams. It's one that is always worth watching.
Phil, are you a believer in Cork? Do you think Pat Ryan can bring them on to the next level next year?
Yeah. Well, look, I think they have every type of player almost, in terms of winning All Ireland. They've such, it's Jace pointed, the depth of quality in Cork is huge. So that's kind of so frustrating with the county. That's part of the reason why it's kind of people have been so frustrated as to why they haven't delivered. You look at Alan Connolly and the attacking riches they have. Clearly, it's the defensive structure. I think that the team has lacked, again, Dermot O'Sullivan was in with the county setup, but you're looking for that type of player, just real old style, just defenders who love defending. So like Cork, potentially, you look at them, they've got size, physique, they have every type of player, physically, skill-wise. So it's just about the right balance. I think if a management comes in there with the right balance and a team structure, that's effective. I just felt they overplayed the short passing, and it was kind of always going to backfire against Limerick. So I think if they can find that right balance of styles, potentially, there's so much talent in the county.
Yeah, and Louis Mulqueen, by the way, is the Blackrock manager. He's in his first year there, so he'd be delighted with that result. In Clare, Ballier, they beat Broadford by 12 points there. Tony Kelly obviously doing his thing. Aina Kilnamona beat Crusheen 118-112, and Aidan McCarthy, who missed the season for Clare this year, obviously a huge loss. He scored 1-7 in that game. Plenty of results there. Kilmaley beat Éire Óg 318-315. I think that would have been an excellent game. In Carlow then, I mean, we're used to Mount Leinster Rangers winning. We're used to St. Mullins winning. That happens regularly enough. But Jake Doyle and Jamie Clark goals either side of half-time saw Bagnallstown Gaels beat Mount Leinster Rangers. They could end a 55-year wait if they beat St. Mullins in the final. That would be, I'd say, Bagnallstown would implode, Phil, if they won that.
Absolutely, be huge achievement. I think you were saying though, Shay, it's very early again for a championship, maybe to be wrapped. But look, maybe that's a debate for another day. But let's see the Mount Leinster Rangers. Maybe the power is shifting there within the county.
Yeah, and the thing is, I saw Kevin Egan, journalist, he was tweeting after the game and says, as a general rule, I have good time for how Carlow go about their business. They're a genuinely small county with a proper dual ethos and have come up with imaginative solutions to problems several times. But I can't get my head around their senior hurling championship final being played next Sunday. The whole point of the split season is to share the summer around and to give clubs and club players a proper run at things. Having their entire season, their entire senior hurling championship played by the first weekend in August doesn't seem to fit into that way of thinking. Like even with a county semi-final and then a week later you've got the final, say Mullins beat Ballinakillen 216-118. Jason, it's a fair turnaround. Like if you're a club team, you'd like to have probably 2 weeks to build into a final. I mean, if there's any one place you're going to have that extra week built in, surely it's semi-final and final.
Yeah, absolutely, Shane. Like the breathing space is there now. I know, of course, it's difficult in a dual county like Carlow, and you're trying to keep everybody happy, and it's never an easy task for the fixture makers. But it does seem like very, very early. Like we're only in the 2nd of August here, and it's just, yeah, it does. Like there's so much time left. I know they have to have all their ducks in a row for when the Leinster Club campaigns kick off as well. But it just does seem a bit rushed and maybe not giving the club player the fairness that the new system set out to do.
Yeah, and I remember last year, wasn't it, Ballygunner had a huge gap before they played in the Munster Club Championship against, I can't remember who they played in that first round. Maybe it was Kilmallock. No, it wasn't Kilmallock. But anyway, there was a huge gap and the other team hadn't had a huge gap. In Kerry football, I was, I suppose, as surprised as anyone when I saw that the Cliffords were playing for Fossa just a week after playing the All-Ireland Football Championship. Jeez, how did they drag Paddy and David Clifford out onto the field for that, Phil?
I don't know. I saw the quotes from him afterwards saying it was tough enough, it was hard going. But fair play to him. Like, what did he score? 1-9 again, and the goal was meant to be just an absolute cracker. Paddy, I think, was he playing centre back actually? Yeah, kind of, and you could see him playing that role as well. He's such a good reader in the game and link player. But like, fair play to him. I must say I would have given the lads a bit of a special dispensation maybe for a few days. But like again, it just ties into the idea, and I was writing about it today. This idea that, oh my God, when will we ever see David Clifford play football again? Oh, we won't see him till next summer almost, he's there, and if you want to go see him, I'm sure there's plenty of people who can look through the fixture list and take themselves off if you're within striking distance of Kerry and actually go see one of the already games greats in the flesh.
Do you buy this thing that there's a lot of reaction after the All-Ireland football final, even though Shane Walsh was rightfully the man of the match, Jason, like that this talk already of David Clifford as the best footballer in the history of Gaelic football?
I think he is. Like, I remember when he played in that All-Ireland minor final against Derry when he got 4-4. I remember like just being in the press box at Croke Park. An All-Ireland final day, there might, for the minor game, lads might be in kind of doing their research for the senior game or whatever, but I remember for the minor game, the press box was pretty much full because everyone wanted to get out and get a look at this lad. And then in 2018, he makes the senior debut and he scores that brilliant goal in Clonus against Monaghan. And I don't know, like he's still only 24, like stays injury free. Like I do think we are in the midst of something truly great here. Just the things he can do. Shane Walsh, absolutely man of the match in the final, hands down. But Clifford has just been phenomenal. And, whether Kerry go on and create a dynasty or not, I do think we are in the presence of true greatness here. And, we're going to be telling the grandkids that we saw this man play, because I think he's just absolutely phenomenal. And thank God he didn't go to Australia. And he seems to just, all he wants to do is just play football for his club and play football for Kerry. And I think I have an extra bit of graph for him as well, because people keep telling me he's a big Celtic supporter. So he's always going to be in my good books then.
Phil, go on. Surely you were on edge there.
Yeah, no. Can you really call him the greatest footballer of all time? Like, I don't think you can say that yet. Like, clearly he has that potential in him, and like Jay said, absolute special talent. But I suppose when Kerry were rattling along, even last year, was it? The comparison was made. Well, is Con the footballer of the year at the time? Was Con every bit as impactful in big games and all that? But look, he's an amazing talent. I think the thing about him is that, like, Peter Canavan to me is probably the best forward I've ever seen. Consistently in the flesh, and yet, like, think about Clifford, he has everything. He has all that skill, but the physique, like, he bullies full backs for fun, so he's got the fielding as well as the skill set, so the package wise, he's got everything.
Yeah, would he be surely Dublin would have beaten Kerry if Con was playing?
I think it's a great point. I think they probably would have. I think they probably would have. Like, when Cormac Costello gets that goal, the shot in the arm, it was the only goal Kerry conceded in the whole championship. Like, and that point Kieran Kilkenny got into the canal end, like it even looked like it was going to be Dublin's day then. And you imagine throwing Con into the field on top of that. I do think that, yeah, it's a great point, Shane. And we could have had a very different All Ireland winner at the end of it, but yeah, if Con plays, it's a completely different game, and Dublin may well have won.
Yeah, Phil, your thought on that? Plus, also Mayo next year. Let's say they get Tommy Conroy and Ryan O'Donoghue, and they're fully fit. Now, it might be a tough ask for Tommy Conroy because he's done the cruise ship. With the right manager, do you think they can be right into the All Ireland mix again? Because there's talk of a dynasty coming for Kerry. I don't think that's a foregone conclusion.
I was just going to say, look, maybe that'll happen, but right now I think that's very premature. Like, the reason, if as Jason pointed out, like, if Conor Callum had been playing the semi-final, would we be even having this conversation about David Clifford? In terms of his All-Ireland, the conversation would probably be, we've seen the greatest Gaelic football year yet to win an All-Ireland. So the idea, I think he elevates that team, like a good Kerry team, to being, his greatness elevates the team to being All-Ireland champions. And if you took him out of that team, would they be All-Ireland champions? I'm not sure. And again, so like a team that is obviously such a special player who's elevating the team, but the team as a whole, other counties are going to look at them and say we can get at them, or there won't be a sense of here's a great Kerry team from 1 to 15 that's going to create a dynasty. I don't like, and again, maybe they will, but I would have thought, like you mentioned, Mayo, there's a real sense that no more than when Tyrone won last year, there was a sense that we might have a different champion the following year, or certainly an open race. Yeah,
Jason, having covered over, as you said, with Galway Bay FM, you'd know the Mayo lads fairly well too. Do you think they'll be back next year?
I think they'll absolutely be back. I think they've proven that they're a county that you can just never rule out. You have a few lads like Lee Keegan and Killian O'Connor getting honour in their ears, and Aidan O'Shea is always there, and he's always getting the flack. And he must have been, lads like him must have been watching the rest of that championship with sheer envy, because for the first time ever, they weren't in the last four for a very, very long time. And it was nearly weird not having them there. It was strange, like, because they're always just there in that semi-final. And the injuries were just a killer, and kind of nothing went right. And Killian O'Connor struggled maybe to get back to where he was after that serious Achilles injury as well, and that definitely hampered them. So yeah, I definitely think they'll be back. Like, it seems to be nearly the battle of the backroom teams now with who gets the job. It's all the Hollywood names coming up to the table, like, and they're adamant that they're going to have a new man in place before their club championship, which is due to throw in not till the end of the month, I think. So it'll be interesting to see who gets it and what happens next. But there's always there's always drama in Mayo, and I can guarantee you over the next few weeks something will happen, and there'll be some sort of crack with the county board or something like that.
Yeah.
There's always something down there. There's always something.
I know what I do. I give it to Kevin McStay, get RTE cameras in the dressing rooms from the start. Same with Colin O'Rourke in Meath, and we'd have two of the best sporting documentaries of 2023. I think it's a no-brainer.
Phil, how's the appointment of Colin O'Rourke going down in Meath?
Yeah, in fairness to Colin, like, his reputation, he still has such a good reputation. His standing, from his playing days, kind of will always live on. I guess it's no more than now. It's the coaching setup which is really key. So obviously Barry Callan and Stephen Bray are gone in there, and just people are wondering, who else is going to be part of the setup. Wasn't it Eugene Ivers who has done in kind of integral to the Meath ladies football setup and their tactical and S&C side of things, so well regarded to talk that he was a target. So I think it's more nowadays. Look at Jack O'Connor. Jack O'Connor didn't fully make it happen with Kerry. He was kind of strong enough and so clever in surrounding himself with really good people like Mike Quirk, brilliant coach and manager in his own right, the Paddy Tally element. So all those, Dermot Murphy. So I think for Colin O'Rourke as well, there's a bit of that it's just the other pieces of the jigsaw. And, again, in Meath, the expectations, I think there is a sense of expectation that there aren't 15 other players who haven't got a look in. Like the squad, it's, you need a good setup, but like, it's going to take time, I think, before Meath can knock Dublin.
And just a final thing before I let you go, lads. There's a few more results I want to talk through myself after I let you go. But Jason, what's going to happen in Donegal, and what's next season going to be like?
It's hard to know, Shane. It's been very quiet about a successor to Declan Bonner. A lot of people would say maybe Rory Cavanagh is a good contender after leading St. Eunan's to a county title last year. There's always going to be people talking about the dream of Jim McGuinness coming back, but I don't know if he's interested, to be honest. He seems fairly determined to keep his career on path with the soccer, given all the work he's put in to get on the coaching ladder there, and he's with the Derry City under-19s. You've people are always going to mention him and getting him back. Maybe it'll happen one day, but I just can't see it happening now. I can't see maybe many players finishing up. Neil McGee might call it a day. Michael Murphy will be very disappointed with his season. Just nothing really went right for him in terms of injury, and he struggled in that relegation playoff for his club against our boys last weekend as well. He just didn't seem to be at it all year. Like the hamstrings were at him, and he had a couple other different niggles and knocks as well. And he was probably just very frustrated with all that too. And if you can get him back and flying and where you need him to be, he's still got definitely another couple of seasons in his locker. I think we have a fantastic goalkeeper. I think we have some fantastic good young defenders, which maybe hadn't been the case before. Jamie Brennan never got firing this year. Oisin Gallen never got firing. We got bad news yesterday with Oran McFadden Ferry, one of our best defenders, picked up a cruciate injury. So that's him on the back foot for next year already. So I don't know. It's very up in the air. You have a wide open Ulster Championship now next year. You're going to have a new manager in Monaghan. Jason Sherlock, we're told. You'll have Derry be absolutely chomping at the bit again under Rory. You'll have Tyrone second after what happened to them. Armagh have a big monkey in the back after going out in penalties. So God knows what can happen. At least it's one provincial championship worth kind of talking about in football at the minute anyway. But in terms of Donegal, I really don't know. It's so hard to know who's going to get the job and how it kind of transpires over the next couple of years. It's very difficult. There's no kind of huge young stars coming through that we're hearing about, and that's a bit of a worry. Because 10 years ago there was plenty of them, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, look, brilliant to have both of you on, lads. Really, really appreciate it, and we'll be chatting again soon.
Great stuff. Cheers, lads.
Okay, so that was Phil Lanigan of the Daily Mail and Jason Byrne of the Irish Sun. Just a reminder, we're brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame, you'll get 15% off. There's a huge range of jerseys there, so do check those out. Just some of the other results that we haven't talked about yet. Eden Derry, this is in the Offaly Football Championship, beat Clara by 15 points to 1-6. Shamrocks took care of Capponcur 210 to 1-8. Road, of course, always leading the line in Offaly. They beat Durrow 114 to 9, and Tullamore beat Furban by 2 points, 19 to 17. In Westmeath, Tyrrell Pass beat Moat. St. Loman saw off Gary Castle by 4 points. Carlstown Kinnegad beat Calry 39 to 8. Tang beat Rosemount. Killucan saw off Athlone by a point, and the Downs beat Mullingar Shamrocks. Then in the Tipperary Championship, Lockmore Castleiney, who are the county champions, they had a win over Ardfinnan. It was comfortable enough, 12 points to 7. And Clonmel Commercials, the previous champions, they were also comfortable enough winners over Kilnall, 114 to 8 points. Just go through a few more comments before we finish up then. Tim Casey said, Father O'Neill's gave Blarney a big hammering. Declan Dalton, unmarkable, has to come back in the Cork panel. Absolute bull of a man, passionate, clever, and a serious hurler. Definitely a great set of wrists. Douglas looked extremely sharp also against Middleton, adds Tim Casey. Shane Kingston got 1-6 from play, plus 4 or 5 from frees. And Richard Hogan adds in, Dan Shannon still going strong, got a lovely point too. And I believe he also won a penalty. Killian Harris says, great win for Douglas against county champions Middleton and Cork. GA Show podcast says opinions on Shane Dowling's goal. That was for the intermediates in Napiershig. He blasted home a late free or penalty. I'm not sure if it was a free or a penalty, but blasted it to the back of the net. And with the wrists and the ball striking he has, it was no surprise to see him do it. So that's it for this show. Looking back on the weekend that was. Don't forget to sign up to the Thursday Patreon show. We've lots coming. We're going to have Davy Burke and Enda Varley doing a regular show where they interview a former player or coach or backroom team member of different teams across the board. Kieran Carey and Richie Power, they'll also be talking with stars of the game as well. We'll have regular podcasts with them. So patreon.com/OurGame. We'll be back on Thursday with a preview show looking ahead to the coming weekend. There's an awful lot coming. Tipperary County Championship, plenty of other county championships across the board, not just to pick my own native county. But keep the comments coming in. Sign up at patreon.com and we'll chat to you then.